Hi, everybody. I hope that all of you are doing well. For all of those people that have been watching these videos, I thank you. I thank you for the feedback that you've been giving me. It really does encourage me to keep going and sharing my message. For those of you that this might be the first video that you're seeing, welcome. I hope that I am able to give you something maybe that you're looking for. I always believe you're exactly where you're supposed to be. If you found me in this needle of a haystack of all the videos, then maybe you're exactly where you need to be. So this week, we're working on self-care. And self-care to me it's the most vital part of self-healing. And I wanted to give you something that visually you could see of what I'm talking about. Because sometimes people are saying words and you're going, okay, I can kind of get what you're saying. But then when somebody has a visual in front of you, it truly helps. So yesterday I went to Walmart and I had an idea. That's how it goes, right? You have an idea. So then I go there and they don't have it. And what I've learned throughout this whole process is that's beautiful, because when something doesn't exactly work out, something comes that's much better. So self-care to me is a critical piece. So what I got at Walmart was these stacking blocks. And this is the way that I look at self-healing. And the very first top is self-care. So you can see, like, I can't open this up and get to the next levels of my self-healing journey without self-care. It is the critical piece to everything that you can find below. Everything that you see in here, each block, you have to go layer by layer. And you can't go to orange down to light blue without going through yellow, green, and darker green. Everything has a purpose in doing it. It has challenges, it has triumphs, but each layer sets you up for the next layer. But this one on the very top, that's self-care. When we think of self-care, it is the heart of self-healing. It is the reason that it makes your self-healing journey work, or it sets you up for failure if you don't do it. And you might ask, if you watched the gratitude video last week, well, why wasn't it number one? And my way of thinking about it is that if you are not grateful and have a gratitude practice in your life, if you don't see the beauty that things that are in your life, and you will see the beauty of things that aren't in your life, then how are you going to see the beauty that is you, that is within you? So that is why gratitude is my very first practice, because without looking at the beauty that is around you, you will never see the beauty that is within you. If that makes sense to you, if that resonates with you. So self-care, I wanted to give you a little bit of background why this is so important to me. If you saw my story that is on my page, it's the very first thing that I shared on this page. That was, I would say, number 2 of rock bottom, but I had a number 1. And you know, when you have your story and you have hindsight and you're like, oh, if I just would have done this differently, if I just would have maybe had something, I could have changed. I could have been more aware. That is why I'm making these videos. That is why I'm going to make books available. That is why I'm going to do webinars. That's why I'm going to get this information out there. It is a culmination of all of my experiences, all the knowledge I've gained, all the insights that I have been given. So let me start with my story. And as all stories go, they start at the beginning. So I had a childhood that was dysfunctional. My house was dysfunctional. There was love there for sure. But my parents did not have the tools because they were not taught the tools, and then they were not taught the tools. So they did literally the best they could with what they were given. So there's things that I learned in childhood: resilience, bravery, self-care, and the willingness to believe the impossible is possible. I never thought when I was younger that I couldn't do something. I would just be like, the feeling of like, oh, I haven't done it yet. So you could say I was a partier. I was the life of the, like, had just had so much life in me. And everywhere I went, I took that amount of energy and love. And I truly made the best out of my life that I was given. And the most beautiful thing is all the moments that I did have that I do remember. There's not a lot of childhood memories that I have that I do remember, but it's interesting on this self-healing journey that some of the memories start to come back. These little treasures, these little things that you're like, oh my God, I do remember that. So that's something to look forward to. And even if it doesn't happen, then maybe it's not supposed to. But anyway, so back to my story. So I am living life, doing my thing. I have great friends. I have, these wonderful opportunities that I'm getting into. And the one thing I did learn from childhood is nobody is going to give me anything. Nothing. If I want something, I have to go out and get it. I started working when I was 13 years old at a grocery store, the Jubilee in Duluth, Minnesota. And it was a wonderful experience. So I have been working since I was 11 or 12 babysitting, and then I got a job at 13. I have an incredible work ethic. I was a go-getter. So I was dating this older guy that I should not have been. And my sister said to my parents, like, don't tell her not to date him. I'm going to give her a one-way ticket to Connecticut, and she will want to leave here more than she wants to date him. And she knew me. She knew me really well. So they presented this ticket and they said, Jen, you can go, but it's a one-way ticket. And I took it. And so I left for Connecticut. I landed on my feet and I called the guy and I'm like, oh my God, I miss you. It's been so long. And he cheated on me within 24 hours. And I confronted him about it. And he said to me, well, what do you think? I was going to wait? I was like, oh my God, when we're younger and you just do things and it was the best decision that you ever made. That was it, is leaving and being on my own. So I'm in Connecticut. I'm on my own. I lived with my sister a little bit, but she helped me find a place. I met this incredible guy that, there was a couple that I lived with, and beautiful, wonderful people. I learned so much. In that year, it was difficult too, because I'm 18. I'm around a bunch of older people, like most people are in college, and I'm working, living on my own. But in that time, it was nice for my own self-development to do what I want, when I wanted to do it, and find out who I really am. So I'm going along. It's a year later. I end up going out with this girl, and we end up at this dive bar, and this guy walks in, And I was looking for a particular guy because we have these instances where like guys just want one thing and that's it. And I was like so over men and I was done. But he walked in, he goes, "Oh, I'm in a fishing competition." And I said, "Oh, I love fishing." But I still didn't believe him. I'm like, okay, he's at a bar, whatever. And he goes, "No, give me your number." And I said, "Oh, okay, fine. I'll give you my number." So he ends up calling me a day later on time, and we set up a date, and he picks me up, and we have been together ever since. For 30 years, we've been together. I can tell you that I didn't feel seen in my childhood, but when I met him, that was the first time I felt seen, heard, validated, and I didn't have to be anyone other than myself around him. I really felt safe too. So I met the man of my dreams, and we are off on an adventure. We are ready to go. So we landed out in South Dakota for a little while. I ended up taking a college class, and college wasn't really brought up in my household, so I didn't think I was capable of it. But I went to this one class and I was like, "Oh my God, I can totally do this. This is me." So I went to that class and I was like, "Okay, I'm going to college." So we ended up moving back to Duluth, Minnesota, went to the University of Wisconsin-Superior. I got my degree. I had 2 kids, my beautiful, wonderful children. My husband and I found 30 acres over by this lake. It's called Island Lake. And it was beautiful. Like, you are standing on the hill and looking at just trees and this big pond. It was gorgeous. So we got a double wide, we put it on there. I literally had the picket fence in the back because we lived in so much wildlife. I didn't want my kids to be in the back and then we worrying about wildlife coming up. And we did have wolves that would come up to the edge of the property, and my German Shepherd would push them back. But literally had it all. I had my husband. And in the meantime, I have my own career. So I graduated from school and I got a job working for, it was called the Area Woman, and then it was called the Woman Today. And I had the best boss, like one of those people that you work for and you feel blessed just knowing them. And it was incredible. And then I had, my job was to basically work with small businesses and tell them about the Woman Today. And I can tell you my job was to sell advertising, but it was about connections. It was about meeting these small business owners. And I can say after meeting them, they are the hardest working people I have ever known. They give their all to their vision, to their passion. And I loved getting to know each and every one of them. So I have a career. I have 2 beautiful children. I have the house, the land, the husband. I have everything. I am so happy. And I'm taking care of myself. And then in 2003, I got an unknown illness. And I was never diagnosed. So it's a long story, but for 11 years, nobody had answers for me. They said it was a muscle disorder. So the doctors would send me to the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist would send me back to the doctors. And this went back and forth for years. And this is why I'm bringing up self-care. Because I did not back then have somebody say, "Hey, I can't help you physically. I can't make your physical body do anything. Right now, you feel like you're in the midst of this storm, this chaos. But what I can do is start with 5 easy steps to work on your thoughts, because that is the only place that all of this can have solutions. And they might bring you answers. Maybe not the answers you want, but the answers you need. But it would have gave me something when my life was so out of control, to give me control of something. And that's why I'm so passionate about self-care. So we're about 10 years in, and I am downstairs and I fall on the ground, and I have what would be considered like epileptic seizures. So I would fall down, I would be non-responsive, but I would know everything that's happening. And one of my kids just walked over my head. And at the time, I was so mad at my kid. But inside, it wasn't about my kid walking over me. It was that I was now completely invisible. That person that had it all, the house, the kids, the picket fence, the career, was sitting on a floor looking at dust bunnies underneath a couch. So it was the next day, I was upstairs in my room, and I was done. I was done being invisible. I was done being a head in a bed. And so I wanted to end it. I didn't make a plan or anything, but that's where my mind was. I was just done. And then this voice, you could say whatever it was. I really don't care. But a voice came to me, strong and loving, and said, Jen, you can do 24 hours. And to me, I was not in the mindset to have those kind of thoughts, but something came to me and I held on to it like a rope. So I said, you're right. I can do 24 hours. I can do just 24 hours. And that is why I am putting these steps together, because I want to empower you by simplifying the process. We start with the 5 practices to make habits, and then we go on to the next thing once you've done the 5. And that is why self-care is the most important. That person that was laying on the ground feeling invisible, she had the power to do something about that. Not being on the ground, but her own thought processes. To say, if I'm feeling invisible, what can I do about it? What is in my control to do about it? And that is why I'm coming to you today. That is why I'm sharing my story, sharing my knowledge, sharing my insights, because I want you to be able to have the tools to choose you. And that which self-care is. It is putting yourself as number 1, always. Am I saying not to take care of your kids? No, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that person that was on the floor was not being able to take care of her kids because she wasn't taking care of her own mind. If I was in the right mind, if I had all the tools today, I would have made different decisions. I would have had more open communication with my husband. I would have been able to see where my kids are at, even in my own misery, in my own pain. I would have been able to see that and make different choices. So you have the choice too, to take care of yourself. Start your journey. So that way, when you start self-care and you open up another layer. Now, all these layers, somebody's like, we're so about achievables. Like, oh, I want to go from here to here in 6 days. No, I'm not offering you easy. I'm not offering you anything. I cannot heal you. And if you take my tools and it makes something in your life, It wasn't me that did it. Like we said about the car example in my why video, you are taking care of your car. I can hand you a wrench and I can say, here's the wrench, but you have to take that wrench, bring it to your car and fix it. So the only person that gets credit for you healing is you. You took all the steps. You took all these layers by yourself. Now, if Susie says, oh my God, Jen, I feel like I got to the next layer, you did. If somebody else is saying, man, I just scratched the surface, you did. There's nobody that is competing with you in your world. It's all about you. That is the only person that matters in this situation is you. And that is why self-care is important. So there's homework that I want you to do this week. Because one of my biggest things is that we can have a thought, like the gratitude that I talked about last week. A thought without feeling is a thought. So when we have a thought and we say it out loud and we do something about it, we are creating forward motion. Now that could be a very small step. That could be like, oh my God, I just got out of the house and walked around the block. I was size 22 and I took my dog and I walked 2 blocks. And then I walked 3 blocks. And then I kept going and I kept going. And then all of a sudden I was running up, straight uphill, if anybody's been to Duluth, Minnesota, stairs and running around the block. But I had to start with a block. So don't compare your steps to anyone else's. Your progress, how fast, how slow it goes, it's okay. So your homework for today, if you choose to accept it, is I want you to write a letter, a pen to paper letter. And I want you to write it, dear, and put your name. And in that letter, I want you to put all the love, all the compassion, and all the understanding. I want you to put in there everything that you've been wanting people to say to you, to hear you, to validate you. I want you to put it all on the page. And when you get done and you fill that page with so much love for you, then you'll want you to sign it with your name. And for those of you struggling with this, I want you to almost put yourself at a distance, okay? So if you have a person and they're coming to you and they're looking for compassion, I want you just to take a step back from yourself. What would you say to that friend, to that acquaintance, to that stranger that's pouring out their story to you? What would you say to them? And write that on the page. So when you're done writing that letter, I want you to take a picture of it with your phone, and I want you to put it in your notes. And then I want you to take the physical letter, put it in an envelope, and I want you to take that letter and put it in your office, in your car, next to your bed. And when we go on this self-care journey, I want you to have that letter on your phone, fully accessible, that every time you question, oh my gosh, I need to do this for this person, I want you to pull out that letter and check in with yourself. Can you do what anyone is asking you to do right now? Are you putting yourself first? If you don't take your kid to the mall because you're exhausted, it's okay. If you can't have a conversation with you because you have so much going in your mind and you won't be listening anyways, it's okay. If you have to take a step back, go stay in a hotel for 24 hours because that's what you need, it's okay. And anyone around you, and remember this, anyone around you that is not okay with you taking care of yourself first, you have to check who you are surrounded with, because the people that love you, that care about you, are okay if you take space, because what they're saying to you is you are as equal and as important as them. You are as equal and as important as them. Those are the people that you want to surround yourself with. And if you don't have that right now, then be that person for yourself. Be that support system for yourself. I just want to say that I really appreciate all of you. I know how brave this is. Just to watch this video, this isn't easy because it brings up a lot. And I didn't tell my story to compare it to your story or say, well, I don't have it as bad as she does, or I had it worse than she does. It's not. It's to see some of my story in your story and take the parts that you want and it serves you, take them. For anything that didn't serve you, throw it away. It's not important. I love you all, my beautiful souls. You take care, and we'll see you next week for grounding. Bye.